Hey boys and girls, Mr. Flaherty back with another video. This will be for some of you who will actually be here live with me when we're going over this. For other you, will be at home, which is why I still haven't shaved, don't have a shirt and tie on, getting a little haircut over the weekend, and then we'll be ready to go. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things with area and perimeter. So you've probably done this a little bit in third grade. So there's a couple different ways that we would figure out the area or the perimeter. Okay, so this one, sometimes it's going to give you kind of the blocks, or sometimes like it'll have just this outside part here, like kind of a grid pattern, but the middle part would be missing. And then you have to go through, but either way, you would kind of go through, and with this particular method, you can count. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. And you can kind of count how many go across. Like you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then 1, 2, 3. And I can kind of find those are called dimensions. Something you kind of hear about, like the dimension. I think it has to do with kind of like a one dimension is the kind of the perimeter. It means it's just kind of one straight line, or just it can even be the outside, just one line. Two dimension has length and width. And then three dimension, which you do in fifth grade, and you can't really see it very well, that's a cube, it has volume. It has length, it has width, and it has height going up. Okay, so it has three different dimensions, length, width, and height. I know this obviously isn't flat, but if you kind of pretended that it was. It just has length and width. Right? So when we're finding this, when we're finding the area, we're really just counting, well, how many square units are there? They literally want to know, like, how many squares are there? So another way to do it, again, if they give you the squares inside, you can actually physically count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is going to be 3 rows or 3 stacks of 7. This means 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, which is 7 times 2. And then 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Okay, so that's kind of one way to do it. The area is 21 square units. It didn't kind of tell me if it was inches, centimeters, feet, miles, or whatever. Okay, the perimeter is the distance around the outside. I think of it like in basketball, right? You have the perimeter, right? Kind of that rim. Okay, so the perimeter is the outside. It's just the distance. How long would it take to go around there? And I always think of these ones like in real life situations with things like a fence. You want to build a garden, or even just want to fence your backyard in, or again, the big dog park over downtown, right? How much miles or how many feet or how many, is miles that much, but sometimes, or typically for us, it's how many feet of fencing do we need? So this is, you can kind of count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's my 7 again. The corners you have to count twice. So this particular square is both a top and a side. So that's 8. Oh, sorry, that's 8, 9, 10. That's 7 plus 3. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then 18, 19, and 20. So that's one way to do it, to actually physically count, and that's just units. Okay, or sometimes we see this with the little 2 up in the air, and I'll show you that later. Sometimes we write it as units squared, or square units. Again, perimeter is just distance, just really the length. Right, and then that's kind of our typical way. Like I said, sometimes they won't give you the part in the middle, but they'll give you lines around the outside to count. You just have to figure out how long is it, how wide is it, and then either multiply or add them together, which gets us to our next one. Okay, and this one's even a little bit trickier. It's the area of a rectangle. There's a rule about rectangles, and I made these little lines here. These won't really be on your paper. Okay? But a rule of rectangles that opposite sides have to be equal for it to be a rectangle. So it doesn't tell me how long this side is, and I don't need that yet until perimeter, but it's going to come in handy in a minute. And I put this in a couple of things. The formula to find areas, you just take the length and times it by the width. That just means you take this way and multiply it by this way. Okay, length times width. Again, I already know those two things. I can plug those in or substitute those. The length is 4 and the width is 9. I am doing my math facts, cool little 9 trick. If you ever learned that, put all 10 fingers up. Let me try to get back into the light. And you put the fourth one down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say I have 30 on this side and then 6 after that fourth spot. So length times width, 4 times 9 is 36. And they did tell me a measurement. This is in inches. I write this like this, inches and then squared. A little kind of floating 2. Or again, you can also write that as SQ, which means square, inches. And this is what I was talking about before, kind of with the perimeter. This is what will come in handy. Is when you're going around, again, it didn't tell me the other two sides. And I can do it kind of that way. Now I'll start with this one. I'll start with one where you don't figure out what the other two are. There's 2 ways to find the perimeter. It's really, you have to add all the different, whatever shape it is, you have to add all the sides together. You can just do 2 times, and then length plus the width. So before area, we did length times width. I can basically double the length plus the width. And that happened here. Remember, this was 7 and 3. So one side was 7, the other side was 3. Together, that made 10. I know I'm going to have another 10 on the other side. And then 10 plus 10 is 20. So that's kind of what happens here. 9 plus 4 makes 13. That's what the length and width would turn to. And then I'm going to double that. Times it by 2 or add it to itself. 13 plus 13 or 13 times 2 is 26. And I don't need that little floating 2 or the squares. That's just inches. And I know some of you are probably saying, well, why do we call it square inches? And that has to do with the kind of that one up here. It was literally, there were 21 squares. Each one, again, in this case, if we had that, we could make, if we were to do this, we could make 36 of those little squares. Right? I would do kind of 4 this way. I'm not going to do it because 9's kind of hard. But you see how that would turn into 4 rows or columns? And then I'd have 9 of those going across. I think of that sometimes like a cake. You know, I have 4, and then 4, 8, and then 4 more, and then 4 more. I'm going all the way down. I said I won't do quite all of it, but eventually I would end up with 36 little squares. Okay? Another rule is sometimes if we have a square itself, not like the little squares like square units, but a square, it might only actually tell me one side of a square. Because just like I know with rectangles, opposite sides are always equal, in a square, I know that all 4 sides are equal. So I don't really need to know, again, so length times width, all the different sides are 6. Right? And then this side has to be 6, and this side has to be 6. So when I'm finding the perimeter, I'll do perimeter first. I'll do just, it's going to be 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. Or 6 times 4 in this case, which is 24 centimeters. Okay? Again, length times width is, sometimes people get confused, it's a little trickier. They put 24 twice. And I was talking about this. Usually kids are good with area and perimeter. They just get confused about which one is which. Area means kind of how much is inside, which is why it's those square units. That's why we times it. Okay? That's to do because if it's really long, really right, then it's going to be a lot. Perimeter is kind of how much is around the outside. So that's what we just figured out. If you were to build a square fence, again, that'd be pretty small because we're only using centimeters. Say you were just blocking something in, you could like capture an ant or something in there. You'd have 24 centimeters around. If we want to know how many little ones, we do 6 times 6, which is 36. Again, that's how many little squares I could make inside. So I would have, each one would be a centimeter. I just had those, give me a second. And you can kind of imagine in your mind, if I had this little square, I know again, you probably can't see it very well. It's dark, but if I keep the light on, then there's too big of a glare. Okay? should be able to kind of fit, say, 36 of these in here. I'd be able to put one right in the corner. Didn't mean to touch that part. And the second one, a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one, a sixth one. And again, I would have 6 different rows of those little squares. And that would kind of fill those spots in. All right, so that's our basic idea for area and perimeter. So you just got to try to remember the difference between the two. Oh, and I meant to tell you the other way to find the perimeter. The other formula is just length plus width plus length plus width. And where I just do like 9 plus 4 plus 9 plus 4. Again, this way I did 9 plus 4 makes 13. And then 13, you double it to make 26. Here I just do get 9 plus 4 is 13. Plus 9 more is 22. Plus 4 more is 26. Again, area is just length times the width. This side, 7 times this side, 3. 9 times 4, 6 times 6. All right. I will see you on Monday. Like I said, all clean shaven, new haircut. I'll actually get to have some of you guys in front of us, which will be awesome. All right. Have a good weekend.